Today we have a special guest on the Parenting Bridge. We have Dr. Schindelheim, and we just want to welcome her today.
Hi, welcome to the Parenting Bridge podcast. I'm Dr. Michelle Alden, a licensed professional counselor, parent coach, and family therapist, and I'm here to help you to build a bridge to your best family possible.
So welcome, Dr. Samantha Schindelheim, to the Parenting Bridge podcast, sorry. So I just want to share a little bit about you, what I know, that you're passionate about helping parents and children from just surviving emotional turmoil and life problems to thriving and using healthy coping skills, helping the parents and the kids, as well as safe and trusting collaborative team approach. You're based in New York City, and like myself, we both provide in-home therapy as well as virtual support. And we also both work with ADHD and neurodiverse kids and their parents. So I'm eager to have you here and have you tell us a little bit about your background and your journey and, some things that you can share with our listeners.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I'm based in New York City. I work for a group, private practice called TMB Psychological Services. And my big passion in my career has been around doing home-based work, working with families in their natural environments. I do more behavioral management work, evidence-based, and we could go into more of the different types of therapy that I do. But I'm very interested in supporting parents and children.
Yeah, me too. And I'm just curious about, like, with your in-home approach, because there's really not, I don't think there's that many of us out there.
No.
And I found it to be really effective, but I'm just curious about what you do when you go into the
Yeah.
homes and,
Yeah.
what your experiences are.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you how I started out doing this. I started at a hospital-based clinic, doing what crisis management in home. So I worked for a hospital in a program called home-based crisis intervention. And in that, we were working with children 5 to 18 who were struggling with really high-risk concerns, suicide attempts or suicidal thoughts. I was also working with younger kids who were more neurodivergent and had, you know, first real concerns around behaviors, ADHD, ODD, and were, the kids in a school who were throwing chairs, were being threatened that they were going to call an ambulance and have to go to the emergency room. So my job was really to help with stabilization and go into the home, providing individual psychotherapy and doing collateral work with parents, and providing support to really stabilize so that they wouldn't have to return to an emergency room or be hospitalized further down the road. So that was really wonderful. And then when I went into private practice, I thought a similar model that's less crisis management and more, long-term supporting families in their home natural environments was really rewarding for me and also for the parents, of course, and seeing that, exposure work can be done there in vivo parent coaching, where I'm watching the parent and giving them some tools in the moment that they're struggling with their child. And also being able to do, child observations where I'm seeing in their natural environments, really what's going on for the child. What are some triggers? What are things happening for them where they need more support? And seeing, what are the tools that they have in their own home to be able to give them, to be able to, help the child as much as possible. So that's where I kind of branched into more long-term work.
Yeah, so how long are you with the family when you're working with them?
Yeah. So it really depends on what I'm seeing or the needs are. I do parent-child interaction therapy in the home, PCIT. So with that, it's a typical PCIT timeline of, I'd say, 4 months, 3 to 4 months where I'm working with a family. And we'll do bug in the ear and I'll coach them in the home in that sense. And we'll go through CDI procedures and PDI procedures. But for teens where I'm doing more family work, it can be much longer. It really just depends on the family's needs. And then sometimes I'll want to do, hybrid where we'll do some virtual work because it just can be more convenient. Sometimes they aren't available for me to come to the home and just meeting their needs wherever they're at. So it can be any timeline. But generally, I'm much more focused on seeing results and accomplishing goals. So I'm not there forever. I try not to be. It means that I'm not doing effective work then.
Yeah, we try to do that too, where we have a 90-day program that we
Okay.
do, and we will extend it if we need to. And then we have some follow-up things that some parents take advantage of them, and some of them are done. Okay, we did it,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
it can be pretty intensive but we spend quite a few hours at a time
Yeah.
in the home. And but our main goal, and it sounds like yours is too, is to really be able to pass that baton to the parents and be able to have them know those skills and use those skills, that they can even learn, that they don't have to have someone else from the outs, a
Yeah.
provider or somebody that they're paying to help their child to learn how to manage their behaviors and emotions.
Exactly. I mean, one of the biggest things that I see is just parents having such low confidence in their ability to help their child. And I'm kind of in there much more as a parent coach and supporting the parent, oftentimes in the home than I am in really working with the child in the sense of just telling the parent that they can do it with the skills, like you're saying, to equip long term to support themselves and their child.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And that's what I see too, is that I think, especially if your child has a diagnosis or gets a diagnosis, it's like all of a sudden now there's all these other people that are supposed to know more
Yes.
about your child. And I think that parents are really yeah, just don't have the confidence and
Yes. Yes.
really don't know that they can do it. Well, their therapist said,
Yes.
I don't want to do this, or the school says, and it's like, but this is your home, so
Exactly. And there's a lot of frustration too, I think, where, children are going to the office and the parents are saying, a clinician's office, and they're saying, but they're not doing it here. But I swear this is something I'm struggling with when you're in the home or when you're visiting a school, because I do school observations as well and work with school faculty, is that, it's really important to be able to see these things in real life and them happening. And you can do that with, a natural environment like a school and a home.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I used to see kids in the office a lot, and then I started doing both, seeing them in the office and at
Yeah.
home. I actually did equine therapy for a while too, which was a whole nother element. We still
Yep.
do some of that, but it's just what you see in the office is just so minimal compared. I mean, I think in all the years I did that, maybe one kid that just totally flipped out in the office. The rest of them, it was
Yeah.
like they loved coming and it was fun and easy.
Yeah.
And when I'd show up at their home, it was like, oh, okay, this
Yeah.
is, what kind of therapist are you?
Yeah. I don't want you here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What kind of misconceptions do you see in our field? You know, like,
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come a long way with supporting parents, but I do think that there's a lot of misconceptions for parents around what we can do to quote unquote fix their child. And I think that's something that parents really struggle with, where I'm much more of a parent therapist than I am when I'm working with younger children than I am a child therapist, I like to say. And if the parent is not on board to do the work with me, then it's much harder to see progress. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around and maybe this is controversial, but what child therapy is. And I'm seeing that more and more so when a parent will call me and say, I need you to fix my child, I need you to work with them, but they don't want to be involved necessarily. So I'm seeing that. I see a lot of misconceptions around, what is helpful for children in terms of, the buzzwords today are gentle parenting, for example, versus discipline. And I think there's a lot of confusion around what is the best approach for children. And I have to say, I think we're continuously learning that. And, you know, I think there's a lot of wonderful behavioral management approaches out there. And at the same time, I think it really needs to be tailored to each child. And parents have and clinicians too, that, you know, have a misconception around using more standard approaches than what needs to be catered to each individual needs.
And I think too, you know, if you're only seeing the child in the office, and sometimes some kids kind of hold it together at school even, you know, or the school forgets that they have a whole team that's helping
Yeah.
hold this child together. And
Yeah.
so there's can be a lot of you know, us and them kind of like, well, if the parents would do this, if, you know, they're fine for me, but it's the parents. And I think that is not always helpful
Yeah.
either, you know, and I think for the parents to have someone on their side, you know, and they're on their team, you know, it's all, I think a lot of things too are very child focused in our
Yeah.
society today. And even we can kind of be that way in the work that we do, where it's like, the misconception is that we're going to come in and fix the behaviors, which is very child focused, behavior focused, but really we're helping with the interactions between the parent and child. I know you do a lot of work in that area as
Yes.
well. And
Yes.
I tell the parents now, I just tell them up front, like, we can't change this until you are able to change your interactions
Yes.
with this behavior.
Yes, it's all about the relationship, really, and having that, you know, strong relationship with your child that makes the parent feel, also brings out the confidence, like we were saying, and makes sense for the child to be able to want to follow the parent's lead if the relationship is strong and they're trusting of their parent. I think I see too, I was going to mention when you were talking before, is just the challenges around shame and guilt and blame that parents often feel when there's a lot of blame being put, you know, on the child, it's the child's behavior focused on the child, and feeling like I'm causing that or I'm doing that and wanting to shy further and further away of seeing like what's really going on and how we can make some changes happen in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes time. I always tell parents, like, it takes time to learn new ways of doing
Yeah,
these
everything.
things. You
Yeah,
know, it's not easy, you know, and I know certainly like we know as adults that change is difficult when
yeah,
we try to make changes in our life, whether it's health or, you know, emotional, you know, whatever, behavioral. And yet sometimes there's this like, okay, they want their, you know, we want the kids to just change. It's like,
yeah,
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 maybe this
exactly.
is working for them somehow. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think too, like the histories, I often work with parents around like really understanding their own parenting history, like how they were parented and how they grew up, and just being able to understand the ways that they're parenting now and how that relates to that. And just with our world and there being so much trauma, I think they're, you know, getting parents more and more aware of that, these, you know, important things, important experiences, is needs to happen, and it can be helpful in that way too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think because some parents would come into it, you know, I'm not going to do what my parents did, and so it's like the pendulum just kind of swings this other way, but they're it's still kind of reactionary. It's not
Yeah.
really responding. And then there's other parents that are already very intentional, you know, trying to do everything right. Sometimes they just need the support of somebody else saying yes, like, keep going, keep doing this, because I don't know which kids you see, but the ones I see have some pretty extreme behaviors, and it's pretty wearing day after day, sometimes moment after moment. And a lot of parents are really just tired and
Yeah.
burned out.
At a loss, exactly. Very, very challenging.
And don't you think too, it's harder to see the changes in your own home? Like, you know, it's your 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 child goes somewhere else and somebody else might be able to see like, oh, they're so well behaved or whatever. But at home, you're like, yeah, it's not the same kid, you know?
Yeah, totally different kid. And in certain ways, it's great in the sense that it's clear that they feel more comfortable that they can act out at that level. But it's also so upsetting to know that they have to hold it together so much when they're out in other environments. And I see that a lot where it can be really hard for the parents that they're the ones always getting the brunt of it.
I've seen a real kind of uptick in the behaviors with kids across the board.
Yeah.
When I first started doing this work in the home, it was really about supporting the parents, saying, hey, I believe you. Like when you tell me this is happening at your home, even when they would come to the office, it was like, I believe you,
Yes.
And now it seems like the people are seeing it everywhere. The schools are really struggling, at least here where I live. And I don't know if it's also because there's more and more children that are being diagnosed with, with different mental health
Yeah.
things, or, what's happening. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I don't think COVID helped in one bit. I think that really did such a disservice to our youth, in not being able to be socializing appropriately, screen time. I really feel very strongly that screen time, social media use, all of that is really playing such a harmful um impact on children, and causing I think a lot more impulsivity around, and almost, I don't love to call it addiction, but it's really the best way to describe it, of the screen addiction and addiction to social media use, that's just creating these behaviors that are just oftentimes, almost, parents will say, uncharacteristic of their child, because they really need that constant stimulation.
Yeah. I've had probably the most, I would say probably most of the like aggression and violence tends to happen around screen times, taking
Yes.
it away, trying to turn it
Yeah.
off, trying to get them to do something else.
Yes.
And a lot of parents will use it, kind of as the punishment, or the
Yeah.
reward, and a lot of problems around that.
Yeah, yeah, I do a lot of work around consistency with the use, and really being able to understand, some of the behaviors around that, when is it really appropriate? When can it be helpful for the child? And when is it being used, like you're saying, as just a reward or a consequence?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you find yourself telling parents over and over?
Um, Well, a big skill that I love to use is validation. And I teach that, I feel like, over and over, in terms of a strategy, specifically of really being able to say, I understand, let's say Johnny, I understand, Johnny, where you're coming from. I understand that it's really upsetting that you can't get your screen time right now. And being able to help and kind of be in the moment in your child's head, to feel what they're feeling. And I think that really helps parents create more empathy and understanding of their child's emotions. So I feel like I'm constantly going over that skill. I'm also, I'm constantly talking to parents around the importance, like I said before, of consistency. I think that when things are kind of all over the place for a child, and there isn't a structure, there aren't a clear plan for what the consequence is going to be, or what the reward is going to be, it's very confusing. And so I'm oftentimes going over consistency very frequently.
And I know that you said that before, that structure was really key. And so can you share a little bit about like the kind of structure that you help parents to have?
Yeah, yeah. With a few clients recently, I've noticed that summertime can be such a hard time to help kids get structure. I mean, in school, they do a wonderful job of oftentimes of scheduling and having structure for kids. And then once school ends, there's free days, and then there's camp days. But even with camp, it can be not as structured too. So helping parents come up with a good structure in place, a schedule, this is what your every day is going to look like. We're going to wake up, no matter what day it is, we're going to have breakfast together. We're going to, play a game together, and we're going to get ready, and we're going to go out, whatever it is. And having visuals, for the younger kids, I do, or put it, type it out in words for the older kids, but being clear around what is it going to look like. And I think also, parents who are burnt out, working, really long hours, they're coming home after the child's like done with school, or have childcare, and don't really know how to structure the evening so that everything is set up for success for the child to go to bed on time and all of that. So being able to also have clear structure in the evening time, that even if it's free play, what are the options of play that can be offered to the child if they're doing it on their own without the parent while the parent is cooking dinner, and being able to really lay that out for parents so that it stays consistent.
That's a big piece of what we do too. And I've found that the longer that I do this, like the parents, some parents really struggle with putting that structure. I think we're coming into another generation of parents that maybe they didn't have any of that kind of
Yes.
structure when they were younger. And so it's can be one of the most challenges. And I feel like most of them have heard from the children's counselors, the school, everywhere, like, oh, you have to have structure, you have to be consistent, but they don't know how to actually do that. And it's so amazing when you just give them the tools of like, okay, here's what a schedule looks like. And we do in our schedule, we do a lot of transitions the first part of the program. So we have kids transitioning for about every 30 minutes.
Okay.
Part of that is because I feel like they don't have the attention span to do something much longer. And it usually takes a little bit to transition into the activity. So we're really talking about building that ability to be able to sit and do something or play and do something, or, for 20 to 30 minutes. And that's been really helpful with a lot of things that you mentioned, like, impulse control, delayed gratification. We're not going to do this now. We're going to do it at 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
And so and also because transitions tend to be so difficult for a lot of kids with ADHD, neurodiverse kids. So we have a lot of opportunity to work on that, putting something away and transitioning to something else, and helping them to be able to change their focus. And I think that I've more and more parents are telling me like, well, I had ADHD, or I have ADHD, or I have, this and that. So this is really hard for me. And they're really tired by the end of the day.
Yes. I find that that's one of the biggest things I struggle with, is when the child has ADHD, and oftentimes we know it's common, the parent has ADHD, and helping both of them organize themselves. That is just really one of the biggest challenges I face, I think, when I'm working with a family, in the sense of helping them organize scheduling for them, and being able to get the parent to really be able to organize their thought process, not get overstimulated or overwhelmed by the child's, let's say they're acting out in the sense of having, a tantrum or behavioral dysregulation, that I struggle with too a lot.
And I think it's such valuable work that you do, though, because if you think about how overwhelmed the child is with not having the structure, and then you think about these parents really being in the same place. And it's so when somebody tells them like, you need to have structure, but they already feel so overwhelming in their home with the behaviors and, all of the appointments and everything else. And so somebody else to be able to just walk beside them, whether they're in the home or online, virtually, just that support, like, okay, well, I know it's hard. Here's how we're going to do it, and I find more and more, and I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older, but I find I'm helping parents more than I was before.
I'm like, please message me when this has been done, like confirm that it's going on, like, and what you were saying before also reminded me of the importance of teaching co-regulation too to the parents, that especially when I'm seeing parents who also have ADHD, this idea of like modeling for their child how they're able to regulate, and using the same skills that we're teaching the child for coping can be taught to the parents, and doing it together, and the impact that makes.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that's the other big piece that we do is teaching that co-regulation. And we found in some of our more challenging situations that it's been really important sometimes to just teach the parent the regulation skills, because we used to teach it to the kids kind of with the parents there, but lately it's been more of a need to like, let's help you. We call it a calm +5, where they have to get calm and then wait 5 minutes and be calm. And a lot of parents really struggle with that 5 minutes. It's a long time until you get used to it. But then they start to like it. I had a mom the other day that just was like, sat on the couch. She's like, I'm doing a COMP+5. Don't talk to me.
Good,
I was like,
good.
okay, we can do that. We
Yeah.
can support you. We'll let our brains calm down and help your brain.
Love it. Absolutely. It's so important. And I think the other piece too is that idea of repairs that parents are, it's okay with, like, I had a parent the other day said, I just yelled at my kid and I felt so bad and it was just awful. And I couldn't face them. And I said to them, if you can just, there's so much work that could be done in improving your relationship ongoing. If you can afterwards talk to them about it and apologize and say, mom didn't, or dad didn't do a good job of responding to you when you threw your bowl out at the table, and being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it really fosters family growth and interconnection, and I have seen some parents kind of go overboard where they feel so guilty that
Yes.
that it's not effective. But I mean, we're modeling for our kids how to own our stuff, right? And how to move on. That's
Yes.
a big piece of, like, yes, we had this problem, but now we're here. I found a lot of help with, like, reminding parents, like, but with kids with ADHD, especially, there's now and not now.
Yeah.
And so if you're in the not now of the past or the not now of the future, you're not really connecting with them. You have to deal with now, right now,
Exactly. Yep. Definitely.
That's good. Do you have, like, a success story that you would want to share, or
Sure.
moment?
Yeah. Well, I just graduated a family that I was working with who the parent had contacted me back in last summer saying, I'm really struggling with my child. Transitions are really hard. She's 5. She, isn't able to follow my directions. I'm just at my loose ends. I don't know what to do. And they ended up not staying with me at that point. They decided to pursue somewhere else, and they started working with a psychoanalyst doing more play therapy work. And they also were seeing that there wasn't much progress. The child was fine, like we were saying, in the office she was doing great, she's such a lovely child, all of that. And they ended up coming back to me in the winter, and we did a full PCIT in the home. And in conjunction, I didn't do really full evidence-based PCIT by the book. I added in a lot of emotion regulation and parent management work at the beginning because this parent was very anxious and wanted to see progress. She cared very much about the relationship, but she wanted some behavior management skills already, and felt like she needed some answers around the child's behaviors. So we did it in conjunction. And they had, about a month after I started working with them, the mother shared, I booked a trip. I don't feel comfortable going, but I'm going to do it. We're going to go on a trip in a few months, just me and my husband, and we'll see how it goes. But I can't even imagine going right now because I'm worried about leaving her with anyone. And they, we graduated, we saw so much progress in their relationship and the behaviors, and the parents went on the trip, and mom said, like, I wasn't even concerned anymore about her behaviors and leaving her. I was able to go, and we were able to do our trip together. And it was just wonderful. So seeing that success, seeing the parents' self-confidence grow in our work, was just a wonderful success story to talk about.
Awesome. I love that when you can see the growth, and when the parents can experience it too. Like,
Yeah.
I tell parents, we believe it can get better, and we want you to experience that too.
Yes.
And I work with a lot of parents that just hit so many walls. They're like, they just, it's going to keep getting worse and worse. And, some of them, it's like, it's already pretty bad. Like, what if this is as worse as it's going to get, and we can just get better from here?
Exactly. Yeah. And the parent kept saying, I hear what you're saying. I hear that you think that's going to, this is going to work. This treatment's going to work, and things are going to get better, but I don't see it. There's no way. And then now it's like, okay, I get why you were saying that. I see it now.
It's interesting because it's working with the parents and helping them with the interactions. It's almost like a backdoor approach, even though we come right in the front door and are right there where the rubber meets the road, but it's very, I tell parents too, it's going to seem kind of counterintuitive, some of these things, because we're not going to deal with, this thing that's happening right here, we're going to back it up and deal with this thing that happened right before. And, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Do you have like a funny moment or experience as a parent or professional that you can think of that?
Um, well, I don't know if this is funny, but I am a mother to an 18-month-old, and knowing some about toddler development, I really start with kids at 4 or 5, but being a parent now and a child therapist, and seeing all of the challenges in place, and actually being in the moment, dealing with some of the challenges that I see and talk with parents about, has been really interesting. And I said to my mom the other day, I said, I feel like she's a toddler already. I thought that doesn't happen until they're 2. She's saying, no, I didn't put the blanket on her doll the right way that her dad did, and had a full-blown tantrum. And my mom was just like, the apple never falls far from the tree, and you were the same way when you were younger. And it's just been such a funny, enlightening experience being a parent to, an earlier toddler, and seeing so many of the behaviors that I work with parents around, and having to test myself now in staying calm and being able to regulate, and telling her, it's going to be okay. Let me help you. Let's problem solve together, and all of that.
Yeah.
So it feels full circle now.
I had that same experience when I adopted my son, because I work with a lot of adoptive families. And
Oh,
I remember after the first few weeks, because I tell parents, like, I know, it's like you're encouraging them the whole way, and they're tired, because I'm like, okay, we're on it, all the time. And
yes.
he came home, I had things kind of, I mean, he never knew like we're doing mom's program or something like that, but it
Yeah.
was just kind of the way we ran things. And I remember thinking he did something, I can't, some, tantrum or, whatever. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really hard.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
Yeah.
get it's like I get it on a whole different level. I
Yeah.
felt like I got it before, and felt like I was, but it's like, yep, yeah, it'll
Yeah.
wear you out.
Exactly. My empathy has only grown for parents.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think it does. I found with my grandkids that 18 months is the new 2,
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
What's one thing that you want to share with our parents that are listening today, who might just need encouragement or?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I always want to validate that parenting is hard. It is very much a journey, and it ebbs and flows all the time, in terms of it being real, there being really wonderful, positive moments. And I hope that parents are able to see that in the moments of real struggles, and when they're in the survival mode. And then also that, with support, with as much community as there can be so much growth and ability to really thrive. And I think that I love and this is a whole nother topic, but I would love the United States to be more collectivist, have more of a collectivist style, because having a village around and a support network is better than anything. And to remember that there are so many people that can support parents, and we just have to help them find that.
Great, that's great. How can our listeners find you?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I'm based in New York. You can find me if you Google my name, Samantha Schindelheim, Dr. Samantha Schindelheim. It's our practice is called TMB. So it's Thrive Mindful Balance Psychological Services. So online, that's a great way to find us too that way. And I'm on Psychology Today as well.
Great, great. We'll put all of that in the show notes too, so people can
Wonderful.
look you up and see what you're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being on the show. And I'm glad to have a colleague in New York.
Yes, yes, Dr. Alden,
So
wonderful to speak with you. Such a pleasure.
nice to know there's someone else in the trenches of the
Yes,
homes and helping
very
parents,
much.
because I really think that there's a lot of work that can be done in our field of like helping the parents to feel supported and to kind of put them back in being the parents,
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Parenting Bridge. Do you want to learn more about building a bridge to better behaviors? Pick up a copy of Dr. Michelle Alden's new book, Parenting Emotionally Distressed Kids. Or, for more resources, you can click on the link for Healthy Foundations. If you would like to leave a comment or a question for Dr. Alden, there's a link in the notes. We'll see you next time, and remember, things can always get better.